Scott, welcome. Glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for
I'm
coming.
just enjoying looking at this.
There's a lot of intricacies, yeah, and there's stuff off camera that not everybody gets to see, so it's for your enjoyment.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why every time we start, we're like,
Oh, right.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah.
so the way we start, speaking of, is we sort of just shoot questions at you. They could be about anything and everything, usually not super serious, but that's sort of like improv. And we know you know what improv is all about, being a musician, especially a jazz musician. So we're going to jump right into it.
All right.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So aside from the drummer, the pianist, and the horn players, what's the secret superpower of the bass in a jazz group? Or
Well, probably just its multifunctionality. It's equally important as a rhythmic foundation and keeping the pulse, and as a harmonic foundation. Um, then the role of the bass has expanded so much in terms of being a solo instrument as well. So the bass does everything that everybody else does, and some things that only it does.
And would you say, like, of any of those things, what is like the one thing that you do that you think the audience has no idea?
The audience has no idea.
That what you're doing or how
Well,
you're contributing?
it's like my wife says, "I can't believe they're going to pay you to go boom, boom, boom."
Wow. Thanks, honey.
So if that's what she knows, I would say that the most important thing about playing jazz bass that's not necessarily noticed by anyone is contributing to the feel of the music,
Mhm.
and it does that kind of by having the feel of the music in their ear, and then playing in a way that does that. Some notes are longer and some notes are shorter. Some notes are accented. You choose registers primarily according to feel.
Mhm.
If things are really intense and it's staying that way, I'll just play low forever. And if there needs to be a clarity of time, I'll play real high and real pointed. And so I would say that people hear the bass going boom, 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 and don't necessarily appreciate the whole level of how good the music actually feels to what the bass player is doing.
I think what we find time and time again is that there is, with every musician, every role within an ensemble, there's a lot of things and nuance going on that people have no idea how they're affecting the overall feel, like you said, of
Yeah.
the piece.
But it's probably good. Would you say that if they could really notice it and it stood out, that might not be the best thing?
That's true.
You want it.
I would think.
Yeah, no, a lot of people say, "Oh, this one band sounds a lot better than that band," and I don't know why.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know.
That's true.
So here's a good question, as someone who doesn't own a bass. How do you shop for a car? That thing's humongous.
You know what? It's not bad. I have a Hyundai Ioniq,
Oh.
and it's about, and a Mazda 3 works too. You need one that's got a hatchback.
Okay.
And then you put the bottom of the bass by the back of the car, and then the neck, depending on the size of the car, inserts between the bucket seats in the front. And on my car, it's like 1 inch into the seats, but on some cars, it comes almost all the way up to a stick shift or something, but it fits in a large number of cars. And in the old days, I drove cars where I had to put the bass on the passenger seat, put the seat all the way
Oh,
down,
yeah.
and then put the neck of the bass up into the window.
There is an old commercial from the 1950s selling a station wagon,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a picture, and the whole band, it's like a jazz combo. They're all in like blue leisure suits. Have you seen this commercial?
No.
And
Bass and drums in the car.
they put the bass, the drums, the whole thing in the car, plus the whole entire band, and they're all just happily driving along. It's hilarious.
It's a funny part.
All too true. All too true.
So, David Baker, Barry Harris, shaped so many great players, yourself included. What's the one piece of wisdom from them that you still hear in your head on the bandstand today?
Hey, people, pull my coat.
Who's that?
That's David Baker.
Okay.
He always started every class with "Pull my coat." You know, I don't know if he changed his lingo. That would have been his lingo in the '70s.
Right.
So I can only imagine
As
how
time
much
went
he
on.
changed. Yeah, if he changed or not. I don't know. Both are extremely strong influence on me in the way that I teach. Um, but really, it's kind of like I always tell students when they're thinking about a school, you don't usually go to a school because David Baker's there or any particular teacher. You go because of the quality of the students. It's the
Mm,
quality of the students that matter the most. So the Indiana University is the largest music school in the world. You know, I played in the same band with John Clayton for 3 years there, and those relationships and the people that were there that I still know and deal with are important. And I learned as much from a trumpet player that moved to Canada after he graduated, named Chaz Ellison, was a major influence. And so it's people that were there and people that played good and having world class players there. And that's why if you go to Harvard, it's not about your teacher, it's about relationships that will get you work in the future.
that's a super cool, perspective that I haven't heard before, but I instinctively know that just from my own schooling too. It was like I was surrounded by people that were all like-minded and
Hmm.
motivated the same way, and, I never realized that, the people around you obviously are professors. They kinda guide and but you need that experience with the people that are around you playing with you that makes a difference.
Ultimately, everybody teaches themselves.
True. Yeah.
And if you don't put in the time to teach yourself, anybody trying to lead you down that path isn't going to help unless you apply yourself.
Interesting. So you spent a lot of time in Chicago,
Hmm.
and aside from the cold winters and the wind off the lake, what is one takeaway that you have from that time there that you still reflect on?
Uh, y- you know, when I was in New York for 6 years, and it's a huge scene. You do a huge wide variety of things. I traveled with big band on trumpet. I played in salsa bands on trumpet. I played duo clubs on bass. I did all these different things, super often with different people, but with a little circle of people that you play with regularly too. Then in Milwaukee, I went there, at the request of David Hazeltine, who's a great jazz piano player, and we played, 4 nights a week together, and I played with Mel Ryan there, and it was a really small scene. If you didn't play with Dave or Mel, there wasn't anybody to play with, and so, Chicago's really huge, and there's a lot of really good players,
Mhm.
and, I like that, and it's nice on the one hand. On the other hand, you know Jason Carter and Bryce Winston and Angelo Versace and Arthur Vint and Max Goldschmidt, they're as good as anybody anywhere, and playing with them more often than not it is better. It honestly is. So it's like you got the variety and all the different people that you play with, but if people are play really great, then playing with the same circle of people is variety enough. Play with Matt Metro one night and, Chris Pena the next and Joe Bourne the next and Arthur Vint the next, and then do that again. And your relationships and the ability to sound like a band, as sort of like a pickup group for a particular thing, it's unreplaceable.
So that's the second time you've mentioned relationships and how important they are, as they were in school and learning process, and
Yeah,
then in your professional playing process
super
too.
much, yeah.
Yeah. Um, and so what I'm hearing is that you've been able to build these relationships better in this environment where we are here in Tucson than it was possible in Chicago, just because of the
Yeah.
different experience, different people, the amount of people that you were playing with, and,
Yes,
and
you're more dependent on people you know how to play together better, and the relationship is, worth more. In Chicago, it's like they call you third, and then fourth, fifth, or sixth is fine. You know, you know.
Do they call you to do other things? Go to a game,
Yeah.
have some pizza?
Yeah.
Let's play golf sometime.
All
Play
right,
golf.
golf is good.
Yeah.
Do you play a lot of golf here in town?
I try to play once a week. I hit golf balls every morning, usually around 5 a.m.
Okay.
Do you find yourself, let's talk about the golf. Do you find yourself applying lessons from your golf game? Do you find that can you apply that to what you do in music?
Um, Not so much, because the thing that's nice about golf is that you're only dependent on yourself. And I always figure a gig's worth playing if you stand a chance of playing the best you can. If you're playing with people, whereas if you play as good as you can, it doesn't matter, or you can't even play as good as you can, then those jobs aren't worth doing.
Hmm.
But that being said, when you're playing with other people, how it comes out is dependent on the collective group. And the thing I love most about playing the bass is just listening to the band. I'm just they're like an audience member almost.
It's nice when you get to that space when you're playing and you don't realize that you're contributing, right? You know that you're contributing, but
Right.
but you're really just listening. And I know as a player, sometimes I think many players have all experienced this. If you've been doing it long enough, that like, wow, this band sounds great. Like, I don't think I'm doing anything. And then if you stop playing and then you hear your sound go away, like, oh, I guess I was contributing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Especially as a bass player, I can't imagine that. Like, that voice goes away. Like, wow, it's so much.
Yeah, no, it is, but still, it's super much like on autopilot. You listen to the band's playing softer now. Oh, there's a lot of space by the saxophone player, so
Hmm.
I should be more active here to feed him an idea or whatever. But that kind of all is a result of a trickle down, top down effect. The way economics are supposed to work.
Yeah.
Wait, we're not going there.
It's it's interesting. Your perspective is a little different as a bass player. You mentioned it like in the reference to golf too, is because as a bass player, you're very much relying upon the group setting,
Yeah.
where it's not really a solo instrument in any respect.
Sure, lots of times I have a fantasy about the way I think it should sound, but the reality of the people you're playing with doesn't allow you to play it that way. So then you do what you think is going to work best given the circumstances.
What is the personality of a bass player that makes you or people that you teach or work with that like what are the aspects that like truly make that bass player the right personality for that instrument?
Um, that's kind of, it's not that, not like a lead trumpet player. I mean, lead trumpet player definitely has a personality
Hmm.
of wanting to be in charge, of wanting the responsibility of the vulnerability.
Hmm.
You know, if you miss a note, everybody knows. You
Mm.
know, and you really want the responsibility of leading the group and having everybody listen to you first.
Hmm.
Jason, that's exactly like Jason Carter is. And on the bass, it's more similar to a lead trumpet player than not. They tend to have a really strong identity about how things go. Often when I listen to other bands, um, and it doesn't feel as good as it can, to me, it's often because the bass player has a dogmatic attitude about how it should sound, and he's not going to let go of what's in his ear, even if it doesn't fit the way other people are playing. And so, um, the advantage the lead trumpet player has is they always get to do it exactly their way, you know. And bass players are kind of like that, but I think that bass players need to be, more open minded and more changeable according to especially the drummer, but the style of music.
Yeah.
Was bass was the bass always you? or how did you start? What was that the
You know,
start?
I played trumpet. I went to Indiana University as a jazz trumpet major, and I started playing bass at Indiana University. And then when I moved to New York, I moved to New York as a trumpet player primarily. And I had a lot of physical problems with my throat. You know, like would cough up blood all the time. My
Ooh,
throat really hurt bad,
ooh,
and I got a steady job in the Catskills in the show band on trumpet, and I just practiced the bass all day long. And then when I went back to New York, only worked as a bass player, and I quit playing the trumpet. And so. Um, yeah, it's not like I was super attracted to bass on the one hand. On the other hand, when I go out and hear bands, uh, the bass player mattered tremendously to me. You know, it always there's a lot of bass players to go see, but um, you know, Buster Williams. If Buster Williams was in a band, it was always going to feel good, and it was
yeah.
always going to swing. And so, when I switched from trumpet to bass, the only thing was learning where the notes were on the instruments. I really had no study process for what notes to
Mhm.
play.
That's interesting. Um, that's that's an evolution of instruments I usually don't hear from trumpet to bass.
Yeah.
Like that you're kind of unique in that space.
Yeah, there's some others. There are some others, but yeah, it
It
does.
certainly gives you a real attentiveness to melody and what's going on for
Well,
sure.
it's very
'Cause
good to have a perspective of the front of the band and
yeah,
back.
for sure. So let's switch gears and talk about Tucson Jazz Institute, an organization that tells how it got started. What's it like working with the youngsters these days? Maybe a proudest moment you've had with them.
You know, I love teaching really, and I think a lot of the reason is that the audience that you learn how to relate to and communicate with always stays the same. And one of the students that I taught was Ben Canfield, who's now getting a doctorate as a TA for Angelo, and he had been gone a long time. And honestly, when I saw him for the first time 6 weeks ago, I totally didn't recognize him. It was like if I had to tell you who that was, even though I saw him for like 4 years in a row, I wouldn't have known.
Oh,
And so um, um, the Tucson Jazz Institute was actually the roots of it went back to what used to be the Arizona Jazz Academy, which I started teaching with the year I when I came here. The first year I worked with Stan Dunst in the Tucson Jazz Society's
hmm,
Jazz Works.
right.
Then I went over to the Jazz Academy, and Bryce Winston worked in Jazz Works, and we were working against each other, and I bridged the gap between Doug Titeback and Bryce Winston and convinced them to work better. I think they're both mad about that still. But nonetheless, we turned it into one organization and changed the name to the Tucson Jazz Institute. And so we've been around. This is, I think, our 16th year.
That's amazing.
And we've had a great success and are kind of worldwide known and done a lot of really unbelievable things. And the amount of people that, like right now, my middle school program is smaller than it's ever been, but it's like I still have like 8 students that are going to be in the Ellington band. That'll be unbelievable. So I don't have as many students as I've had, but it seems like only the good ones are there. It's interesting because it used to be, it's like you just have 60 or 70 middle school students, and the ones that hung in there played, and somehow we're only getting in the door ones that are going to hang in there. It's weird.
That's, do you think that's just the evolution of the program itself, or just the times
No,
and
it's
space that we're in?
yeah, it's not the evolution of the program. It's the evolution of the way kids are, where um, they're not spending as much time with music, and there aren't as many people that are playing an instrument that say, "Oh, I'll try this and I'll try this," and the people that are actually doing it are probably know they're more interested in it.
Yeah.
The amount that phones have changed young people is incalculable.
Yeah.
True.
You know.
Maybe they just decide earlier. Like they're exposed to things sooner? I mean, you guys are the teachers.
Yeah, they are definitely exposed to things sooner, and there seems to be a little bit of awareness that you have to, make choices sooner rather than
Mhm.
later, but still the amount of good musicians that are also scholarly and good athletes is debilitating, it's like, really, because you can't be all equally great at all three of those things forever,
Right. Yeah.
so yeah, I don't really know why it in terms of why COVID is the reason why the middle school is so much smaller. I
Right,
mean,
yeah, I was gonna mention that.
programs are decimated and they have not recovered. They're starting to recover, but it really and that it's like I was hearing some BS thing on the news about, you know, how much money is lost. Like they were talking about $32 trillion due to what's happened to education of
Wow.
middle schoolers that were missed a year of school, and take 3 years to catch up. It's terrible.
Well,
Right, yeah. It's it's great that there's programs like the Tucson Jazz Institute that give a lift to students. Like, what surprises you? Like when you're because you work with the younger ones when they're first entering. Like what, like
Well, the thing that surprises me more than anything else, honestly, is every combination of skill sets that you think might not go together, somebody has them. Somebody that can read anything and gets a great sound, but doesn't want to improvise. Or, I mean, and any possible combination of things that it just like it wouldn't seem like it's possible to put that combination together, but
right,
somebody has that combination. And it's shocking. But, for us, at the Jazz Institute, the Tucson Jazz Music's Foundation, helping with kids go there. They're well supported, and when we went to New York last year with 18 kids, 5 nights flying there. Uh, 6 of them were on full scholarship and paid nothing. The rest paid $500.
that's
that's an
amazing.
amazing underwriting process
Yeah,
for
yeah,
that
yeah,
to happen,
yeah.
and that shows that there's community support
Yes, there
for
is.
what you do, and people
Yes.
recognize the worth of that.
Yes, there's a lot of parents from past that help keep that organization going, and it makes a big difference for us having the people to do it and making even people that can afford it
Mhm.
be more reasonable, because we go to Las Vegas, we go to New York, we go up to NAU, and all those trips are subsidized extremely significantly.
That's that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's good to see and
If I
hear.
if I could say anything, keep doing the work that you're doing. It
Yes,
makes
for
a
sure.
difference for sure. That you impact so many wonderful students and impact our community in ways that, and that's the hardest thing with music. They're not measurable always,
Right.
right? And a lot of times people want to see measurable outcomes. And like, oh, I can see it, I can feel it, I know it, I can see it on their faces. But it's like, it's hard to like quantify that. But I know I've seen it in the results and the people and the good human beings that get brought up through a program. And anybody in music, honestly, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's impactful. And so thank you
Certainly.
for that. I from one musician to another, educator to educator, I really do appreciate that. So we're moved to one other thing. We have a question. We always ask somebody from outside um,
Yeah, this is
that knows you,
the
right?
super surprise
A
part of
super
the program.
surprise. Yeah, I mean, it's not a gotcha question, but so we
It
ask
could
some.
be.
Yeah, yeah, it could be. Yeah, it depends on like what they want to ask you.
He's rolling his eyes
Yeah,
already.
Kenji wanted to ask Arthur Vent, can I borrow your sticks?
Oh, yeah, really important stuff.
This one's way more important.
Yeah, exactly. So we talked to Dr. Angelo Versace and he asked a question of you, and he said this. Let me read it. What, in your opinion, are some of the greatest teachers, mentors in jazz history, and why?
Well, innovation is one. For example, one of those would have to be Jamie Emersol. He's the first one that came along with play-along records,
Mhm.
playing along records with live bands. The bands that are on Woody Shaw's records are on Woody Shaw's play-along record, and and Ron Carter's on his Charlie Parker record and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So Jamie did two things. He had those play-along records and instruction books, which aren't great, but then the classes that he ran, 1 week summer camps,
Right.
and people would go to them, and they would be populated with jazz
Do
musicians.
you know what years he made those recordings?
Um, yeah, I'd say starting in 72, 71, 72
And
through
they did it for
to
many years, right?
yes, into the 80s. They kept coming out with new
So
volumes. I think they have like 70 volumes.
if you're not familiar with them, Cheetah, they're amazing. Like what Scott's talking about is like you have these records that you get to play along with, and you're playing with the best players
Mhm.
that exist. And as a young player, to have a recording to play along to, and you get to play your part with it, and and
Yeah, no, a lot of people would have parties at their house where 3 horn players would come over, and the
Oh,
rhythm
fun.
section was
Yeah.
a Jamie Emersol record.
that's
Yeah,
that that's that's for
That's
sure.
great,
I mean, it
though.
was super real. So Jamie is unbelievably important because of that. David Baker was the first person one of the first jazz education programs. I was actually there in his second year of having a jazz program. The Breckers were there like in the at the end before they had a jazz education program in Indiana. The Breckers were there. Um, and Barry Harris's longevity of doing jazz workshops in New York, I mean, 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of, I mean, Jerry Coker was important in his own right to a degree. People wrote books, but the actual understanding of how to teach people to really play the right notes was almost exclusively Barry Harris's domain.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you've been in the presence and worked with all these, and here you are,
Yeah.
an educator yourself, and a big part of who you are and your life and what you've put out in this world. So there's one last question.
Oh, the other
Oh,
answer,
what's it?
the other answer is the most important thing is to get people to be passionate about chess, because ultimately the work that you're going to do is only going to happen if you're motivated. And the only thing that a teacher can do that's going to transcend anything else is inspire people to care about the music. So I always tell my students, okay, so I'm going to ask this and this and this. And the answer to every question is listen to jazz.
Yeah. Like half of our job as teachers is just to teach a student to care,
Yeah.
to give a damn
But
about
he's saying
something,
listen, which
and
goes
listen.
right back to the beginning of the conversation
Yeah.
where you said the biggest part of my instrument is the listening.
Listening. Yeah. So one last question. Um, why does live music matter?
You know, uh, I had a friend I had a friend in Bloomington, Indiana, and he was like the best young musician there. He was an alto player named Rich Oppenheim, truly great player. And Charles Mingus band came to town, and someone told them about Rich, and so Mingus invited him to come up and play. And I remember he played like 15 courses on a blues or something like that, which was probably more than Mingus wanted to play. And then after he was done playing, Mingus cut off the band and said, well, you're playing really good. And it sounds like everything you learned about playing, you learned from records. But playing, but that's not the complete picture. You can't just playing things on records. You have to play things from the street or from playing with
Mm.
other musicians, out there. So I mean, the acoustic phenomena and the reality of actually hearing the music is incalculable. And another thing that occurs to me these days with people's attention span, if like in a week, Peter Bernstein and Larry Goldings are going to be at the Century Room, and the chances, and if a young person goes to that, they will be there for the 70 minutes they play. The chances of them listening to 70 minutes of a record on YouTube or something like that, they're really low.
Yeah.
you
That's
know,
valid. Yes.
and so people's ability to be focused and have their attention stay in the moment is definitely super much enhanced by being there, seeing people play, and paying for something, you know,
Has worth.
paying for something matters a lot,
Yeah.
you know. Uh, I always tell my kids that, and I went to New York, there were a lot of records I want, and I went to record stores and I paid 40 and even $60 for some
Mhm.
records, piece of vinyl, and you can look it up and hear it for free on YouTube. But the difference is I listen to them.
You had skin in
Yeah.
the game.
Yeah. Yeah. So what if anything like supports your musicians that are playing and I hear that like wow, if you want to learn how to focus, go listen to live music and take in that moment and be present for 70 minutes,
Yeah,
80 minutes. That
absolutely.
makes a huge difference.
Huge difference.
Scott, it has been an absolute pleasure talking with
Thank
you
you so
today.
much. Good
Thank
to
you.
have you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.